Bob and Rob, thank you, first of all. Our IT department gave them this on Monday. We had an opportunity to get Dennis Armstrong here tonight. So let me just get you set up for the presentation or some of the comments from Dennis. And by the way, it's not live, but it will be available on the website, city website, next couple days. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know that reaching out, trying to figure out, obviously we have two golf courses that are now abandoned, Errol and Rock Springs Ridge, and so a lot of people have some interest in, what can we do that's different than what's been done. And so I reached out to Dennis Armstrong, who happens to be a former mayor of Stuart, Florida. So lived down there for 40 years and then moved up here in 2018 to Stoneybrook West. So we had a long conversation, hour and a half, talking about, what Stoneybrook West did to accomplish the sale or the purchase of their golf course, clubhouse. And so what I want to do is let Dennis kind of go through how they accomplished this. And I guess we thought it was going to be today, but obviously it's not, according to Dennis, another week or so. But anyway, so we're going to have him kind of go through from chronologically how this all happened. But I want to preface that with, we'll get done with his presentation, and he's got a wealth of knowledge on how this happened. But I want y'all to understand is this is not about Errol. This is not about Rock Springs Ridge. This is about what Stoneybrook West did. If you can glean some great information from this, that's great. But this is only about Stoneybrook West, and so we're not talking about Errol. We're not talking about Rock Springs Ridge. But if you have a question at the end, we want to hear it. If you've got a question about what Stoneybrook West did, how they did it, how they accomplished this, then that's what he's here for us to try to explain. So with that, Dennis, would appreciate you giving the folks here from Errol and Rock Springs Ridge kind of a blow-by-blow on what happened at Stoneybrook West.
Right, thank you. So first of all, let me say thank you all for having me. This is a gorgeous facility, beautiful night. I really love this breeze. As you can tell by my mode of transportation here, I haven't gotten out of the house much lately in the last couple months, so it's kind of nice to get out for a change. You're all probably saying, who's this Dennis Armstrong guy? And, the mayor's a pretty sharp dude. What's he doing having this guy come up here to talk to us? So just to fill in the blanks a little bit more, I'm a licensed real estate broker. I got my real estate license back in 1992, primarily specialized in commercial real estate, done apartment developments and lots of residential developments, strip centers, large industrial parcels. I have my own real estate company. I'm also a licensed KM Community Association manager. As the mayor said, in about the same time I got my license, I was elected to the Stewart City Commission and served 3 years on there as a city commissioner, 1 year as a mayor. And then I ran for the county and served 2 terms as a county commissioner. During that time, that almost 12 years, I was involved for about 10 of those years on the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. So I've had a lot of experience in dealing with developments, big developments, little developments, all that sort of stuff. So I've kind of got a background that sort of prepared me for this opportunity, I'm going to call it. So I put together a chronology of all of the steps that Stoneybrook went through to get to where we are today. And as the mayor said, we're not totally where we want to be yet, but we've come such a long ways. It's just unbelievable. I mean, we've been extremely lucky, but there's also a lot of people that have spent a lot of time and effort and sweat and even a few tears to get us to where we are today. So I put together a chronology here of everything we've been through. Believe it or not, it took up 4 pages. As I read back through it, it's like, this almost sounds like an outline for a John Grisham novel. I'm not sure that he could come up with a plot that had this many twists and turns and surprises and the like. But so let me just go through this. I'll try and go as quickly as I can. But at the end of it, I'd like to just kind of open up questions on the Stoneybrook debacle is the word that I generally use. And then after that, I kind of put the list of together of 10 lessons, I guess, that I would say that I kind of learned throughout this process, and I hope I can speak with you a little bit about those. Hopefully, there'll be something that it'll cause you to think. I mean, you may not agree with me on all of them, and I'd ought to offer this disclaimer right up front here. What I'm saying is my opinion. It's not Mayor Nelson's opinion. It's certainly not the city of Apopka's opinion. I've not really, the mayor's not read through my notes. He has no idea what I'm going to say. So, he may reach over and slap me for all I know, but we'll see how things go. So let me begin on the Stoneybrook debacle here. In December of 2018, the Stoneybrook West golf course closed. It was a total surprise to everyone. I mean, I've talked to residents in the community that actually had tee time scheduled for that day, and when they got there to play, the door was locked and there was a closed sign on it. So the owners gave no notice to the homeowners association or anybody in the community that they were closing the golf course. The course sat vacant for several months, and in the spring of 2019, a gentleman by the name of Miguel Vidal purchased the golf course. The family that had owned the course, it was a family operation that actually owns multiple golf courses in the Central Florida area. They held a mortgage note. We come to find out later that Mr. Vidal had absolutely no experience whatsoever in operating a golf course or managing a golf course. I'm not even sure that he ever even played golf. But anyway, he ended up with the golf course ownership in the summer of 2019. I can hang on. In the summer of 2019, Mr. Vidal came in and met with the homeowners association. He promised to open the clubhouse and the driving range and the golf course. One of the comments that he had asked for was that he would want each one of the homes in Stoneybrook West to contribute $35 per home per month to cover the maintenance cost. Stoneybrook has 1,225 homes, so you can kind of do the math. This was a surprise, of course, to us from the HOA, and even more of a surprise because our governing documents specifically said that the HOA could not have any ownership of the golf course whatsoever or have any way of providing funds to support the golf course. So it was pretty clear that Mr. Vidal had not done much in the way of due diligence before he purchased the golf course. In the summer of 2019, again, a large contingent of Stoneybrook West residents went to and attended the City of Winter Garden Commission meeting. They demanded that the city require the property owner to maintain the property. I mean, up to that point, the property had not been mowed, the trees had not been trimmed. The place was looking terrible. Couple months after that, and this again in the summer, the city passes ordinance number 1931. This was an ordinance that implementing regulations for golf course maintenance requirements. I've given Mayor Nelson a copy of this ordinance. I would really encourage you all to think about adding it to your toolbox of things that you can use to make sure that whoever owns a golf course, if it isn't operating, that they do keep it up in a reasonable fashion. fall or winter in 2019, no sign of any facilities opening. The city begins initiating code enforcement action based on the ordinance they had passed during the summer, and quickly begin collecting fines. In the winter of 2020, the Davis family, the owner of the golf course, they sold the mortgage to a local developer. That developer made a presentation to the homeowners associations and presented plans to develop luxury apartments and townhomes. The city manager of Winter Garden also attended that meeting and states that the city believes that no development rights exist on the property. So right away there was a confrontation right there between those two. So we're up to the spring of 2020. The Homeowners Association surveyed the residents to determine their interest in the developer's proposal, and we also asked a number of questions of our residents about whether the HOA should initiate efforts to acquire the golf course property. At that same time, that same period, we also retained a land use attorney to advise the homeowners associations on dealing with the developer and development-related issues. We actually did, I think, by the time it was over with, three separate surveys of residents, kind of getting their feel on what they would like to see. It was almost unanimous that there was no support amongst our residents for luxury apartments. Later on in the summer of 2020, the developer forecloses on the mortgage note, and the homeowners association paid our maintenance company to maintain all the perimeter hedges, which had not been trimmed in, I would guess, probably over 2 years. Late summer 2020, Mr. Vidal files for bankruptcy. The HOA retains a bankruptcy attorney to advise us on issues related to the bankruptcy. Fall of 2020, the attorneys for all of the creditors and everybody involved argue on which venue is best placed to decide this case. The mortgage foreclosure would be in state court. The bankruptcy would be in federal court. The attorneys eventually agreed to litigate in federal court. The developer drops his mortgage foreclosure action, and the bankruptcy case is assigned to a judge, and a bankruptcy trustee is appointed. Later on in the winter, the judge asked the debtor, Mr. Vidal, for a plan to open the facilities and pay off the creditors. By this time, the city becomes the second largest secured creditor behind the mortgage holder due to the accruing code enforcement fines. By this time, those fines had reached somewhere around $1.5 million. The HOA is an unsecured creditor, having spent the money to have the hedges trimmed. But this is really a huge win for us, because this was the first time in the whole timeline that I've spoken of before where the homeowners association actually had a seat at the table, where we were able to have our attorney present for all the discussions, and the HOA actually had an opportunity to kind of make their position on some of these issues heard. So we're into the early winter of 2021, beginning of the year. The debtor submits a plan to open up the facilities and to pay back the creditors. He eventually opens up the driving range, but fails to implement the balance of the plan. The creditors kind of gang up on him and file to have the debtor removed from having possession of the property, and to have the bankruptcy trustee appointed to manage the property. I'm not a bankruptcy attorney, but I'm told that removing the debtor in possession from the property is a really, really, really unusual occurrence. So at about this time, the HOA began our Sixth Amendment process. This was an amendment to our governing documents, which would allow the association to own the golf club property and to assess the residents for the maintenance of the property. Also included in the voting material was our plan on how we would go about financing the purchase of the property, if you will, and also how the maintenance fees would be assessed, about how much they would be. The bankruptcy trustee begins the process to auction off the property and to pay the creditors. About this same time, we're in the late winter of 2021. The Sixth Amendment fails to receive the supermajority vote, 2/3 of the residents of the community voting by 10 votes. That was really disheartening, I got to tell you. But we talked to several people. I talked to Mr. Bolhofer, the city manager of Winter Garden, and he goes, "Well, you just got to go back and try again." That's why cities have second reading on all their ordinances, because they don't always get it right the first time. But you have public comment, you listen to what people have to say, and you learn, and you go back and you ask them again. And it's like, okay, Mike, well, we're going to do that. So we began the process of the Second Amendment. And as I said, voting in there included language to fund the acquisition cost by having the City of Winter Garden implement a special assessment district, all of the Stoneybrook West homeowners. This would be, the special assessment district would be for a 20-year period. The city elected to do it at 0% interest. If you do the math, 1,225, 20 years, oh, a bug, huh? Works out to about $85 a year to fund the $2 million acquisition cost. We also, as I had said, proposed an increase for the assessments for our residents. The number that we had heard off and on from most folks was that they would be willing to shoulder an expense of about $30 a year. So, we said, we'll assess you $1 a day, $365 per home per year to fund the maintenance of the property. We made it clear that certainly wouldn't be enough to generate the money, the revenues necessary to fund a full golf course, but it would be enough to maintain the property as green space and allow us to open up the clubhouse and hopefully get things working back up there. We also began discussions with the City of Winter Garden on how to, I'll use the word circumvent the auction process and to acquire the property. We're getting close here. Early spring of 21. The Sixth Amendment passes with 94% of the votes being cast in favor of the changes to the governing documents, allowing the HOA to acquire the golf course property. 792 residents voted in favor of the city submitting an offer, or voted in favor of the acquisition. How many of you have seen an election with a 94% approval rate, huh? It was amazing. We were, myself, all of our board members we were astonished and we were ecstatic at the same time. This time, the city submitted an offer to the bankruptcy trustee to purchase the property for $2 million. If the trustee accepted that offer, the city would drop their code enforcement lien claim, and if the trustee would cancel the auction. As I said, the code enforcement lien fines had accrued to almost $2 million. If it would have gone on for another month or so, I think the city would actually have been the largest secured creditor. I think they would have passed the mortgage holder. Late spring of 2021, the bankruptcy judge cancels the auction and awards title to the property of the city to the city of Winter Garden. This was a huge nail biter. The judge, I would hate to play poker with this lady because up to the last minute, I don't think any of us really knew what she was going to do, how she was going to rule. But she said that in her mind, the residents of Stoneybrook were the biggest aggrieved party of any of the people there, far more so than the debtor or the mortgage holder, and she felt that it was only fair that the homeowners have the opportunity to control their own destiny and to have the property maintained in the manner that they thought it should be maintained. Beginning of the summer of 2021, the city takes title to the golf club property. The HOA began meeting with, I use the word entities, interested in refurbishing and operating the golf course under a long-term lease scenario. Before it was all over, we probably showed the property to 20 different entities. I mean, these ranged from individual entrepreneurs, as I call them, that had a few bucks that wanted to own their own golf courses, up to a group of folks that used to work there. That was one of them was the pro, and the other one was the manager of the clubhouse, and they banded together with some investors and put forth a proposal to operate and manage the course. In the end, we ended up signing a letter of intent with Kemper Sports to refurbish and operate the course. Kemper Sports, if you go online, is one of the largest operators of golf facilities and sports facilities. They also do tennis facilities and the like throughout the U.S. I think currently they have about 130 facilities throughout the country. So that kind of brings us up to today. Where are we at today? We were actually supposed to close on the property with the city of Winter Garden today. Because of some efforts by the city attorney, that actually has gotten pushed back for a couple days, but I think it will eventually happen. We continue on with lease negotiations with Kemper Sports. The current LOI letter of intent that we have anticipates the lease beginning in early spring with the course reopening in the early winter of 2021. So it's been a pretty amazing ride, and as I said, we've been lucky to get to where we are. I'd be more than happy to try and to answer any questions that you all might have as far as how we worked our way through all of these things. So.
Okay, Dennis. Well, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to go ahead and introduce, because we wanted to wait till everybody got here. I want to introduce we got a couple of commissioners here tonight. We got Commissioner Diane Velasquez and her husband Ed. We have Commissioner Becker as well. We also have our city administrator who lives in one of these communities, Errol Estates, Edward Bass in the back. I also thought, where's Isadora Dean? So former Commissioner Dean, Billy Dean's wife, Isadora, is here tonight with us. One of the things that I know you gave me some information, some financials with the with Kemper Golf Group. Can you kind of explain those, and then we'll open up for questions?
Sure. So we are very fortunate in that our community has a number of residents that are involved in golf operations throughout Central Florida. Gentleman that works for Disney and their golf operation. Another gentleman that actually is the general manager of a golf club down in the Kissimmee area. So we were very fortunate to have good people to gather information from. And one of the things that we did early on was we formed a golf committee to advise the HOA board on these issues, and these folks are members of that golf committee. But the numbers we came up with to operate the golf course at a reasonable fashion was somewhere between $1 million and $1.5 million a year. And now that's just for maintenance. That's not, what I would call, because I'm in the HOA business, the reserves. I mean, lawnmowers don't last forever, roofs don't last forever, air conditioning units don't last forever, just the same as your home. So they really need to be setting aside monies to pay for all of those things that are going to need to be repaired. The other problem that Stoneybrook has, and it's the same problem it sounds like that both of your golf courses have, is these courses have been closed. So to go out and refurbish them, we heard estimates anywhere from $1 to $3 million. I'm sorry, $1 to $4 million, depending on the condition of the course, irrigation system, clubhouse facilities, all of that. Now clearly those numbers reflect the type of course that you're going to have. I mean, probably the $4 million is the Augusta National, and probably the $1 million is something way less. But the point of the matter is that to have an operator come in and spend their money to refurbish something like this is a huge number, and it's not everyone that can afford to spend that kind of money, but we were really fortunate, as I said, that Kemper likes our course. I think that they have done a fairly extensive marketing study on our area. I mean, they're pretty smart folks. I don't think they would have come and talked to us if they didn't think that based on our location and the design of our course and all of the factors that go along with it, that they couldn't make money there. So we're actually on hold with them right now. As I said, the reason being, believe it or not, is that Toro, the #1 supplier of golf maintenance equipment in the U.S., cannot get engines for their equipment. And so Kemper is unable to buy or lease the equipment that they would need to purchase, or I'm sorry, to operate and maintain the golf course. They're hoping that by the spring that problem will be resolved, and that's why we are anticipating a May 1st start date for them on the lease. And as I said, their plans are to have the course up and open for the winter season.
Can you talk about the financial, or is that still, and you talked to me about the financial, what the homeowners association were to pay,
Okay.
and then the kickbacks based on some revenue numbers.
Right. So as I said, our plan was to maintain the green space, or maintain the area as green space. We came up with a scenario, as I said, of $1 a day per homeowner per year. For us, with our number of homes, generates about $440,000. Our deal with Kemper was that we would give them that $440,000 per year to help them defray the cost of maintaining the property. They also then, as part of the lease, they will pay us a rental rate. It's a kind of a graduated rate. As they make money, the amount of money that the HOA would get would increase. They also have an area in there where they will pay money into an account to be used for capital improvements, of which the HOA will have the opportunity to decide and what those improvements might be. So we have we have a seat at the table on some of these decisions, which seems to be a pretty good deal for us. So
I think at that we can open up for questions. Now, just remember, this is questions about the Stoneybrook agreement, not about Errol or Rock Springs Ridge. So if you got any questions about what Dennis has done in Stoneybrook and their HOA have done to make this agreement, we think will happen. I was hoping it was going to be the day that it happened, but anyway, I think it's just some dotting some I's and crossing some T's. So anybody that has a question about what Stoneybrook West HOA has done to put this agreement together? Sure, come on up, David. Yep, come on up to the mic. If anybody else wants to ask a question, if you want to go ahead and line up the next mic, come on up, David. Yep, both of them are hot, so go ahead. Yeah. Anybody else want a question? Come on up. You'll be next up.
My question is, the percentage of the residents that voted for it, if not, wasn't 100%. But the ones that didn't vote, is it mandatory that everybody pay?
So the answer to your last question is yes. It is a homeowners association. It is an assessment. It's added on to their. Our assessments are paid quarterly, so it is a mandatory assessment. I don't know if you live in an HOA or not. I mean, the chances of getting 100% of people to vote is somewhere between 0 and none. There are certain things in our documents that require a supermajority of the owners for things to happen, and this was one of them. So we had to have at least 2/3 of our 1,225 owners to vote for the vote to be effective. As I said, I forget the number. I don't have it right here, but it was, I think, 792, I believe, was the number of people that voted in favor. There was about 45 that were opposed. So,
A simple majority or a supermajority?
this action required a 2/3 vote of all of the residents, so a supermajority.
And that passed?
And that passed, yes.
So every resident is assessed at it?
Correct.
Okay. Now, how much, and all the operation of the golf course and the clubhouse is, you've leased it to this company?
So we're in the process of negotiating a lease with them, sir. We haven't leased it to them yet. It would be a triple net lease, if you're familiar with that term. They would pay the insurance and the taxes, all the expenses. They would also pay us some rent, as I said. They would be in charge of operating the course and the clubhouse. The lease term we've been discussing is a 20-year lease.
And they would make all the decisions as far as running the golf course and the clubhouse? And
we are still in the process of negotiating the lease terms. They had asked in the current draft that they're working on that a representative of the homeowners association be designated as the single point of contact for Kemper to talk to the HOA. It's our plan that we would ask that individual, be it the president or the president's designee, that individual would be allowed to set in on some of their decision making. As the landlord, of course, we would always require them to submit their financials to us and all that sort of stuff. So we should have a pretty good idea of how they're doing and what their plans are.
okay, that's good. That's all.
Obviously, my concern is that we want to be able to compare apples to apples, oranges to oranges, even though we want to talk about Arrow and we want to talk. I don't want to touch it. Okay, I don't want to swallow it. No. How many acres are you talking about? Was that Stoneybrook, or how many holes of golf was involved?
36 holes, 155 acres, I believe, give or take. Clubhouse, the HOA has a town center, so that's where our fitness center and our swimming pool is for our residents. I understand that every situation is unique. Right. There's no doubt in any of our minds that is the case. As the mayor said, hopefully you can glean some thoughts, some ideas here, and as I said, I've got a few more to talk to you about after we answer these questions.
That answered my question: is how many acres and how many holes? So we can make our own comparisons. Okay, thank you.
Come on up. We got two mics. Listen, you got a guy that's just trying to complete something, and I know that folks here tonight want to try to do the same thing. So if you got a question about how Stoneybrook did it, and this is your chance. You're only going to get one shot at Dennis, so come on up.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, you got 36 holes for golf,
Correct.
total 105 acres,
155 acres.
155 acres.
Yes, sir.
So you say the operational budget for that is between 1 to 1.5 million?
Correct. To operate the golf course facility. That not the clubhouse, just the golf course facility itself.
Okay, and you mentioned something about 400K being used to assess Kemper sports. Did I hear that correctly?
So $365 per home times 1,225 homes should give you a number of around 440,000 per year.
Okay. So I guess my question more so with the 1.5 million operational, was that what they were previously doing as far as an operational standpoint? Is that what they were doing?
The city acquired the property through bankruptcy. We acquired the property through the city. We were unable to get any financials from the prior operator. Mr. Vidal, who had control of the property for 2.5 years, never opened it, so we had no financials from him. So the direct answer to your question is we did not have any good information on how the course operated previously. But as I said, we had several residents that are engaged in the golf business, and we spoke with them, and based upon their experiences in operating golf courses, those are the numbers that they threw out.
Okay.
We're reasonably certain that those are a reliable number.
Okay. So in refurbishing the golf courses, you estimated between 1 to 4 million.
Correct.
Okay. And the reason I'm just asking these particular questions because I spoke with Castleberry Golf Club, and they have 18 holes there, and I think it was 80 acres. And their operational budget is between 1.1 and 1.2 million. And you said you have 36 holes. And I spoke with Winter Park yesterday, who have a 9-hole course. They refurbished back in 2016 for 1.2 million, and their operational budget for 9 holes is currently around about 900,000.
So maybe our numbers are a little low, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it seems like it's very low.
But, I mean, we were...
No, I'm just trying to make sure I understood what he was saying because we're throwing out numbers, I want to compare, like I said, apple to apple, so I just want to make sure I understood what you're saying correctly. But at this point in time, you guys are budgeted for 1.5 roughly.
At this point in time, we're budgeted at $440,000 to maintain the property as green space.
Okay.
To maintain it as a functioning golf course is going to be substantially more than that.
So that's where Kemper Sports possibly comes into.
Correct.
Okay.
They would be spending their money to operate the course and to refurbish it.
Okay. So at this point in time, your agreement with the city is just to maintain the site once the financials transition over. Is that kind of how it works?
So we really have no agreement with the city. The city was adamant from day one that they had no interest at all in owning or operating the golf course as a long-term entity. But they were willing to work with the HOA to acquire the course so that the residents would be able to control their own destiny, if you will, as far as what happens with the property.
Okay. So I thought you mentioned something about financial lease for 0% for 20 years.
So the way that the city purchased the course for $2 million, the city is in the process of implementing a special taxing district over all of the Stoneybrook West homes. That would be at a 0 interest rate for 20 years. If you take $2 million and divide it by 1,225 homes divided by 20 years, it works out to about $85 a home per year. It's actually an assessment on your tax bill. If you look at your trim notice, all of the taxing part that has to do with millage and appraisals and all that is on the front. If you flip it over on the back, there's a section on the back there for assessments. And that's where this money would show up on each individual homeowner's tax bill. That cost would run with the land, with the home, so 4 years down the road, if the homeowner sold the property, the person that acquired it would continue to pay that amount until it was paid in full.
Okay, so as far as a method of action at this point, it seems like the city of Apopka adopted
It's not about the city of Apopka. This is Stoneybrook.
But I haven't finished what I was saying. The city of Apopka adopting an ordinance that would, in essence, giving them an authority to pretty much assess a code enforcement against the golf course. It's kind of the first step of action to even get in some of the situation that you just proposed, for the most part.
As I said in the beginning, this is my opinion. It doesn't have anything to do with what the city wants to do or that. But to me, I think that would be a good first step. I think it would be a good way to protect the residents and the fact that the property is maintained in a nice manner.
All right, come on. Any other questions? This is your chance. You won't get another opportunity. Evening, Gary.
Mayor. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. A lot of similarities between where you both sit and where we sit. A lot of time to pull a lot of different loose ends together, and it's, as an American attest, not very easy some of the time. I have a couple of questions. HOA dues. Can you describe what you have for amenities now that the dues would cover, and approximately what you pay per household, if you don't mind
So
sharing?
it's a coincidence. I just wrote my check today because my fourth quarter assessment is due. The check amount was for $625 per quarter. I think it's around 135. Whatever. What's 35 times 30 times 3? $90. About $90 give or take is for the golf course. The balance of that is for the rest of the association amenities. We have an area we call our town center. It has a multi-purpose room, has a fitness center. We have a pool, Olympic-sized swimming pool with a splash pad area for kids. We have a playground. We also have 24-hour manned security. We have 3 gates. Not all 3 of them are manned, but the main gate is manned 24 hours a day. The second one is manned around 10 hours a day. I think that's pretty much the gist of our amenities.
And if I'm understanding, your dues are $145 a quarter?
$145 a quarter for the golf course.
Okay.
The balance of that 625, well, the golf course is about 90. Our total quarterly is 625. So, like, what would it be? 520, something like that is for the association's dues as a whole.
Okay. You are a gated community, correct?
Correct.
Is your course private or public?
So the course is public. It has always been public. That was one of the big issues for the homeowners that it would stay being a public course. Access to the course is outside of the HOA gates. That was something that several of the operators that we talked to spoke about as being a major requirement.
And you wanted that because you didn't want people coming in and out of your gate, and they coming in from the outside rather than simply from circulating through the
Correct.
Through the area. Okay. The golf group is leasing the land currently from.
They will lease.
well-
We have a letter of intent with them to lease the land. Right. We
Okay.
haven't consummated that deal yet, but we're moving forward on it.
Okay. And does that involve any revenue back to you in the early years, or does it postpone it till later?
So as I said, we're the $440 $1,000 that we are collecting per year from our residents that we would have used to maintain the property as green space if it didn't become a golf course. We're giving that to them. We have a graduated lease payment agreement with them that once their revenues reach a certain percentage, that they'll start giving us money back for rent. And then there's also another component where they will give us monies that would go into a fund that can be used for capital improvements to the facilities. And as I said, we will have joint discussion on deciding what those might be.
Weren't there two tiers, I think you said?
Yeah, I didn't bring the lease with me, but yeah, I think it was
I want to say 750, you got
a bump. I
And then
think
above
that,
a
yeah,
million.
I think, I don't remember. I don't remember. I should have brought the LOI agreement with me. I mean, it's spelled out in there. And
But anyway, so I think that the bottom line is the more that the members bring people to the clubhouse or play golf, the more kickback that the homeowner association would get. So I
Yeah,
think it's,
correct.
which is a win-win for everybody.
Is it obligatory for the residents to participate?
Not at all. Not at all.
Okay, about what percentage do participate, do you know, or will?
So you're stealing one of my questions, but let me answer you since you asked it. As I said, we did extensive surveys of our residents because we really wanted to understand what the people wanted. What we discovered was that there were about 20% of the residents that adamantly wanted golf. They didn't care what it cost, what they had to give, didn't matter, they wanted golf. On the other side, we had about 20% of the residents that wanted nothing. I mean, they didn't want golf, they didn't want a homeowners association, they didn't want assessments, they didn't want anybody telling them that their driveway needed pressure cleaned or their bushes needed trimmed.
Yep.
The other about 60% in the middle were in between those two areas, but the general feeling was that people would be willing to pay something to maintain the property as long as they owned the property. And that's a key component. They were not interested in paying if it was going to somebody else that owned the property that was making money still on it and had the potential year down the road or whatever to put the property up for sale and everybody to be back where they were, you know, and not knowing what at all was going to happen in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that kind of answers that question
Yeah,
for you.
yeah, it does. When you bought the property in foreclosure, did they absolve a lot of debt to keep the cost down to $2 million? Or what would it have cost normally? Do you have an idea?
So we never had the auction, so we never really knew what the bids would be. I can tell you that clearly the people that were interested in bidding were all land developers. And they were all interested in development opportunities, even though the city managers, as I said, stood up there and say, you know, we as the governing body that controls this don't think that you have any development rights on this property. But they were still willing to spend significant amounts of money to acquire the property in hopes that they could get some sort of development on the property. As I said, the city wrote off almost $2 million in code enforcement fines. You know, the mortgage holder, his final note amount, I think, was right around $1.5 million. And then there were unsecured creditors, you know, the HOA, Duke Energy, the Orange County tax collector, you know, small numbers. But there actually ended up, I think, being some money that went back to the debtor in possession, believe it or not. That didn't set well with some of my residents, but I mean, that was just the way it worked out.
Yeah. I want to hold you. Who will, the golf leasee will own the clubhouse? Or no?
The HOA will own the clubhouse. The lessee will operate the clubhouse. As I said, we're still in lease negotiations with them. We're hoping at some point in time we can kind of figure out a way where at least one of the HOA members will have a seat at the table maybe once a month to discuss business operations and whatever. So,
Yeah.
Kemper's been in this business for 40 years.
Sure.
You know, I'll be honest. I'll be honest with all of you. I never ever expected a operator of their magnitude to step forward and have an interest in our golf course. But I'm extremely ecstatic that they did.
Okay. Just one last question. Termination agreement. What can you comment on that with the golf group?
So in the lease agreement will be a termination clause. I've had discussions with their representative on performance standards. I mean, to me, clearly the ordinance that we talked about before that talks about minimum height of grass mowing and all that would be the minimum requirement. Again, as I said, Kemper's been in this business for a long time. Far be it for me to tell them how to do it. I'm sure they've done dozens of leases like this over the years, and I'm pretty sure they know what works and what doesn't.
Sure.
So I think that in the end we'll have some. I know in the end we'll have some language in there that will address how that would work and how a termination could be affected if need be.
Because you don't know whether there's any obligation for you as a community on the far end to purchase anything that they have done.
So all improvements that they make on the building, on the property and all that automatically becomes the property of the HOA, the lessee. I had proposed in our latest round of negotiation that there be some language in there that the HOA would have first right to purchase all of the maintenance equipment if they wanted to do that. I mean, if
Yep.
down the road the HOA, Kemper wanted to leave and the HOA wanted to continue maintaining the course, you know, it would seem to me to be advantageous for them to be able to purchase the equipment necessary to do that. So I don't think Kemper has any problem with that. Their representatives
Were they
did.
involved at all in the bonding? The leasee, did
No,
they
sir.
have any
No, sir.
position in that? Okay.
No, sir.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Gary. All right. Any last question? Oh, gosh. Rod Olson.
The name of your land use attorney.
Cecilia Bonifay from Anchorman.
I think that
Thank
name
you.
sounds familiar to Rock Springs Ridge folks.
She's not cheap. For 400, you're stealing some of my questions here. For $450 to $500 an hour, but worth every penny.
Yeah. That's who they had.
The
Rock
be-
Springs Ridge people had Cecilia Bonifay,
The-
didn't you? No, before.
Yeah,
That was your attorney before, wasn't it, Cecilia Bonifay? I'm almost.
Kurt
Who was the one before? Who? Vivian Monaco. I'm sorry. You're right. Vivian Monaco. Yep.
Sam Miller was the bankruptcy attorney we ended up using. He was with the Ackerman firm also. I hate approving the check every month, but you know, I'm fully convinced that we wouldn't be where we are today without having the high caliber people that we had representing us. You know, you're playing in the big leagues. I mean, these developers that you're fighting are, you know, they're going to pay the top dollar for the top people. They're going to have their top team. They do this day after day. You know, you do it once in a lifetime, hopefully. So.
All right. Any last question? Anybody got one last question you want to ask Dennis? Well, thanks those who came out tonight. I would have liked to have had more people here from both Arrow and Rock Springs Ridge. The good news is it will be up on the city website in the next couple of
Want
days.
to go through my
Okay, Dennis.
my lessons learned that I call it. So I hope some of these will cause you to think. I mean, I'm sure that some of these you know the answers to, but my first question, you'll appreciate this one, Mayor. What is a local elected official's worst nightmare? Commissioner's chuckling there.
A closed golf course.
No, the worst nightmare is walking into the commission chambers, finding every seat in the commission chambers full, people lining the outside walls too deep, the fire chief there asking people to leave because the room will only hold 85 people and there's 150 in there, and every one of the people in there is wearing a red shirt like me, and a few of them are carrying signs that say, not no, but hell no. As an elected official, two thoughts come to mind. The first one is, this is going to be a long meeting. The second one is the stress-o-meter in your head. The needle kind of goes off the dial. So don't ever, any of you, don't ever let anybody tell you that you don't have power, because you live in this community, you pay your taxes, and most importantly, you vote. So use that power. You've earned it. The second lesson learned for me, and again, a lot of these go back to my years as an elected official. Support the local elected officials that support you. Give this guy here a hand. I mean, he took the night off to come out here and set up this meeting. As elected officials, we get all kinds of complaints and emails all the time. The vast majority of them are people complaining about something. If a guy like this does something that you like, take 2 minutes, call him up, send him an email, say, thank you. Thank you for doing what you did to support my community. We appreciate it, and we won't forget it. This is one that one of my homeowners reminded me of not too long ago, just last week, actually. The city, the county's money is not their money. It's my money. It's your money. I paid my taxes, and that's where the money came from. There is no reason whatsoever that the city or the county can't spend some of that money to protect my property values in my community, to maintain it as it was originally created. There is all sorts of mechanisms in state statutes that allow local governments to do things to support communities like yours, to determine how they want them to look and how they want them to operate. It just is a matter of the elected officials having the political will to do that. But you need to, you need to force them to do that. Communicate with your residents. Get their emails. I have email, the email addresses of over 3/4 of my residents. I can get out an email blast and have information in front of them within an hour. I talked with some representatives of Stoneybrook East, which is the partner community, if you will, of mine. It was developed by the same developer at the same time on the east side of Orlando. They're gone through some issues with their golf course also. The gentleman I talked with said that they had not been able to make a quorum to hold their annual election for the last 3 years. And I'm thinking to myself, you got way bigger problems than this golf course if your community is that apathetic that you can't even get that many people involved to try and make decisions and put people on the board that can get things done. Do surveys. As I said before, we did a bunch of surveys. They're indispensable on finding out how your residents feel about things. Hold town meetings, question and answer sessions. Find out what your residents really want. Get them involved. I mean, if you get them involved, they're going to stay involved, and your community is going to end up being a much better place. As I said before, own the land. In order to control your own destiny as homeowners, you got to own the land. You got to figure out a way to make that happen. It's imperative that you do that if you want to maintain your communities as viable communities. Do whatever you need to do to amend your governing documents so that the homeowners association is allowed to own the property and to be able to assess residents to maintain it. Get started on that as quickly as you can. Don't leave that till the last minute. I wrote this one down. This one kind of goes back to my old real estate days. What is a developer's definition of a golf course? Golf course to a developer is green space that has had enhancements placed on it so that someone else can pay to maintain that green space. It's always cheaper to develop properties at higher densities. Higher densities have the greatest return for a developer. That's the way the development community thinks about golf courses. They don't really care about you all as homeowners as to whether you like the way it turns out. Their goal is to get as much density on a property as they can possibly get. The higher the density, the greater their return. Go back and look at how many land developers actually own the golf courses that they developed in communities that are 10, 15, 20 years old. I would defy you to find one. They only put in golf courses as a sales tool and as a way to increase densities. We'd already talked about this, and hire good attorneys and expect to pay them top dollar. And the last one is, not every golf course community can support a golf course forever. Sometimes green space is the most that you can afford. I know that's not the answer that all of the golfers in some of your communities want to hear, but contrary to what the PGA says, I mean, I don't think that golf is as big as it used to be. I don't believe that the rates that people used to pay golf are anywhere today what they were before, so it gets harder and harder to maintain property as a golf course and to keep a golf course to be a viable financial operation. Clearly if the residents are willing to cover the cost of that, that's a wonderful thing, but in my community, the vast majority of them weren't willing to spend that kind of money. So those are just my takeaways for you all. Again, those are my opinions, certainly not the mayor's and certainly not the city's, but hopefully they gave you some things to think about. Thank you all for coming. I'll be happy to answer any other questions you might have.
Thank you, Dennis. Eric, thank you. I'm glad everybody gave you a round of applause. So anyway, appreciate you coming out tonight. This will be up on the city website probably, Bob, tomorrow. Oh, wow. Okay, awesome. So if anybody has, that wasn't able to make it tonight, have them go to the website, Apopka City website, and they'll be able to pick up this whole conversation that Dennis Armstrong gave us tonight. Thank you all for coming out. Thanks for the great questions were asked, and have a great evening. Thank you.